My sister and her husband took out a mortgage in my name for their dream house. When the bank contacted me about the debt I knew nothing about, I filed a police report and confronted them in front of our parents. I, 29, working as a nurse in Seattle, when my world imploded with a single phone call. Miss Wilson, you are 3 months behind on your mortgage payments. The bank representative said, what mortgage? I had never owned property in my life. The amount was $623,000. My stomach dropped when I saw the signature. Perfectly forged, but not mine. The address belonged to my sister Amanda's beautiful new home. Tonight was our bi-weekly family dinner, and inside my bag sat a police report that would change everything. If you are watching this from somewhere around the world, I would love to know where. Drop your location in the comments. Hit subscribe and stay tuned for the moment I expose the betrayal that shattered my family forever. Before everything fell apart, I had what I considered a pretty good life. Nothing extraordinary but satisfying in its simplicity. I had been a registered nurse at Seattle Grace Hospital for 6 years working in the pediatric ward. There is something incredibly fulfilling about helping sick children, even on the hardest days when the outcomes are not what we hope for. My colleagues were like family, and I had built a reputation as someone reliable, someone who would pick up extra shifts when needed, someone who cared deeply. My apartment was small but comfortable, a one-bedroom in Ballard that I decorated with secondhand furniture and plants, lots of plants. My friends joked that my place was more greenhouse than home, but those green companions gave me peace after long, chaotic hospital shifts. Then there was my actual family. My parents, David and Carol Wilson, still lived in the same suburban home where my sister and I grew up. Dad had retired from his accounting job 2 years ago, and Mom continued teaching 4th grade, claiming she would retire when the kids stopped being interesting. They were good people, honest, hardworking, and devoted to their daughters. And Amanda, my older sister by 3 years, I had spent my whole life looking up to her. As children, she was the confident one, the achiever, the one who made friends effortlessly while I hung back shy and uncertain. She was homecoming queen, valedictorian, and captain of the debate team. I was the quiet, studious one who found my voice only after college. But there was never any resentment between us, at least none that I acknowledged. I was proud of her accomplishments and grateful for her protection when kids tried to bully me in middle school. As adults, we had remained close despite our different paths. Amanda went into real estate and built a successful career selling luxury properties around Seattle. She married Brian Parker, a financial advisor, 5 years ago. They made a striking couple, both tall, athletic, and perpetually tanned from their frequent vacations to tropical destinations. Their social media pages were catalogs of carefully curated perfection, sunset cocktails, charity galas, and matching tennis outfits. Meanwhile, I remained single, focused on my career and the occasional disastrous date that my coworkers insisted on setting up. Our lives could not have been more different, but we still met for coffee every few weeks, and our family gathered for dinner twice a month. Amanda would sometimes make subtle comments about my lifestyle or suggest investment opportunities one could not possibly afford, but I chalked it up to her wanting the best for me. 8 months ago, Amanda and Brian moved from their downtown condo to a stunning Craftsman in Queen Anne, one of Seattle's most prestigious neighborhoods. When they invited the family over for a housewarming, I remembered feeling a twinge of envy as I walked through the meticulously renovated rooms with their Viking appliances and sweeping views of the city in Puget Sound. Amanda had given me the grand tour, pointing out custom features and designer names I did not recognize. Someday you will have this too, sis, she had said, squeezing my shoulder. You just need to aim higher. The day everything changed started like any other Tuesday. I was halfway through my shift helping a 7-year-old boy named Tyler change his bandages after an appendectomy when my phone vibrated in my pocket. I normally would not answer during patient care, but I had been waiting for news about my elderly neighbor who had been hospitalized the previous night. I excused myself after ensuring Tyler was comfortable. Hello, this is Heather, I answered, stepping into the hallway. Miss Wilson, this is Craig Donovan from Washington Mutual Bank. I am calling about your missed mortgage payments. We have sent several notices, and I am afraid if we do not resolve this soon, we will have to begin foreclosure proceedings. I felt a flutter of confusion. I am sorry, there must be some mistake. I do not have a mortgage. I rent my apartment. The banker's voice took on a slightly condescending tone. Miss Wilson, according to our records, you took out a mortgage for $623,000 in January for a property on Highland Drive. You made payments for the first 3 months, but we have not received anything since April. My mind raced. Highland Drive sounded familiar. Was not that Amanda's street? This is a mistake, I insisted, my voice rising enough that a passing nurse gave me a concerned look. I have never purchased property. My credit is not even good enough for a mortgage that size. I am a nurse, not a surgeon. There was a pause. Then the application shows an annual income of $192,000 and a credit score of 782 at the time of application. We have all the documentation, Miss Wilson, including your signature on multiple forms. Perhaps you could come into the branch to review the paperwork. The conversation continued in this surreal vein for several more minutes before I agreed to visit the bank after my shift. I returned to Tyler's room on autopilot, my mind spinning with possibilities of clerical error, identity theft. But the address, that could not be coincidence. At the bank, Richard Peterson, the branch manager, laid out a folder of documents that made my stomach sink further with each page. Loan application, income verification, credit check, authorization, closing papers, all bearing what appeared to be my signature. And there it was in black and white. The property address matched Amanda's new house. Could I get copies of all of this? I asked, my voice sounding distant, even to my own ears. Richard hesitated. Technically, these are already your copies, but given the circumstances, I can make duplicates. He studied my face. Miss Wilson, if you did not apply for this mortgage, I strongly suggest you contact the police. This appears to be identity theft and possibly fraud. I nodded numbly, but inside a voice was screaming. Not just any identity theft. My sister, my own sister, had stolen my identity to buy her dream house. The days following my visit to the bank became a blur of anxiety, disbelief, and methodical investigation. I called in sick to work for the first time in 2 years, unable to focus on patient care when my own life was unraveling. My apartment, once my sanctuary, now felt like a cage where I paced endlessly, alternating between rage and confusion. Could there be another explanation? Perhaps Amanda had made some terrible administrative mistake. Maybe she'd intended to use her own name, but somehow mine got entered incorrectly. But as I stared at the documents Richard had copied for me, that hopeful theory crumbled. This was deliberate. Someone had carefully forged my signature on multiple documents. Someone had provided my social security number, birth date, and employment history. Someone who knew me intimately. My first call was to Equifax. The customer service representative sounded bored until I explained the situation. Then her tone shifted to practiced sympathy. Let me pull up your credit report, Miss Wilson. The clicking of a keyboard, then a pause. There are several accounts here that appear to have been opened in the past year. The mortgage is the largest, but there's also a home equity line of credit for $150,000, 3 credit cards with limits between $20,000 and $30,000 each, and a personal loan for $45,000. I felt physically ill. All of these are fraudulent. I didn't open any of them. I understand, ma'am. I am initiating a fraud alert on your account immediately, and I'll send you instructions for filing a formal dispute for each account. You should also contact the other credit bureaus right away. By the end of that day, I'd spoken to all 3 major credit bureaus, placed fraud alerts, and discovered that my credit score, once a respectable 724, had plummeted to 546 due to the missed mortgage payments and maxed-out credit cards I knew nothing about. The next morning, I met with Diane Schwartz, a financial advisor recommended by a colleague. Her office was warm and inviting, but nothing could ease the knot of dread in my stomach as I slid the bank documents across her desk. This is definitely identity theft, she confirmed after reviewing everything. And I have to say, it's quite sophisticated. Whoever did this knew exactly what information would be needed to pass verification checks. It was my sister, I said, speaking the accusation aloud for the first time. The house is hers. She's living in it right now. Diane's expression shifted from professional concern to genuine shock. That complicates things. Family fraud is unfortunately common, but it presents unique challenges both legally and emotionally. What should I do? Legally, it's clear. You need to file a police report. Without that, the banks won't recognize you as a victim rather than a participant. But I understand if you're hesitant to potentially send a family member to jail. I was hesitant. Despite the mounting evidence, I still couldn't fully process that Amanda, my protector, my role model, would do this to me. There had to be more to the story. Before going to the police, I decided to gather more information. I contacted a handwriting expert named Marcus Bell, who compared the signatures on the mortgage documents to samples of my actual signature from my passport and work documents. These are forgeries, he concluded after careful examination. Good ones, but forgeries nonetheless. See these pressure points and the slight hesitation in the loop of the age. The forger was trying to be careful to mimic rather than write naturally. Could you testify to that if needed, I asked? Marcus nodded. I'd need to do a more formal analysis, but preliminarily, yes. Next, I began investigating Amanda's finances, which proved more difficult. As her sister, I had no legal right to her financial information. But through social media and casual conversations with mutual friends, I pieced together troubling patterns. Despite their apparent wealth, Amanda and Brian had been facing financial difficulties for at least 2 years. Her real estate business had suffered during a market downturn. Brian had left his previous firm under circumstances no one would discuss clearly, and his new independent advisory business wasn't attracting the high net worth clients he'd anticipated. Yet their lifestyle hadn't changed. If anything, they'd become more extravagant with a new boat and membership at an exclusive country club. The most damning evidence came from my friend Stephanie, who worked at a luxury car dealership where Amanda had purchased a new Mercedes. I probably shouldn't tell you this, Stephanie said over coffee, but when they ran her credit for financing, it was a mess. Brian ended up paying cash, but I overheard them arguing about it in the parking lot. He said something like, "We can't keep doing this." The house was risky enough. The house, my house. According to the bank, I also discovered multiple credit accounts opened in my name, all linked to online statements with the contact email being a slight variation of my actual address. Heather Wilson, 883@gmail.com, instead of my real Heather Wilson, 1993@gmail.com. Easy to miss in verification processes, but clearly deliberate. Every new piece of information felt like another weight on my chest, making it harder to breathe, harder to deny the truth. My sister, whom I trusted completely, had stolen my identity to finance a lifestyle she couldn't afford. She'd thrown me under the bus without hesitation, leaving me to deal with the financial and legal fallout when it all inevitably collapsed. After a week of investigation, I could no longer avoid the necessary step. With a heart that felt like lead, I drove to the Seattle Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit and asked to file a report for identity theft and fraud. The Seattle Police Department's Financial Crimes Office was nothing like the dramatic police stations from television shows. Instead, it occupied part of a nondescript municipal building with fluorescent lighting and outdated furniture. I sat in a hard plastic chair for nearly an hour before a detective could see me clutching a folder containing all the evidence I'd gathered. Heather Wilson, a woman in her 40s with short brown hair and tired eyes, approached. "I'm Detective Rachel Thompson. Sorry about the wait. Follow me." She led me to a small interview room with a table, 3 chairs, and absolutely nothing else except a wall-mounted camera in the corner. Detective Thompson noticed me eyeing it. "Standard procedure," she explained. "Helps protect both you and us. Now I understand you're here to report identity theft." "Yes," I said, my voice smaller than I intended. "By my sister." Something flickered in Detective Thompson's expression, surprise, maybe even sympathy, before her professional demeanor returned. "I see. That's unfortunately more common than you might think. Tell me everything from the beginning." For the next 2 hours, I walked her through the whole story. The bank called the mortgage, which I never applied for. The credit cards and loans, opened in my name. The house my sister was living in, purchased with my stolen identity. Detective Thompson took detailed notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. She seemed particularly interested in the timeline and how Amanda might have obtained my personal information. "Do you share any financial accounts, safety deposit boxes? Has she ever lived with you as an adult?" "No to all of those, but we're close." Or, "I thought we were. She's been to my apartment countless times. My important documents are in a file cabinet in my home office, not locked." I felt foolish admitting this. I never thought I needed to protect myself from my own sister. Detective Thompson's expression softened slightly. "No one expects this from family. It's not your fault." After I finished my account, she leaned back in her chair. "Miss Wilson, I want to be clear about something. Filing this report means we will investigate fully. And if the evidence supports your claims, your sister could face serious criminal charges. Identity theft and mortgage fraud are felonies. She could go to prison. Are you prepared for that?" The question hit me like a physical blow. Was I prepared to be responsible for sending Amanda to prison, for destroying her life, her marriage, her career? I thought about our childhood, how she taught me to ride a bike, helped me with homework, stood up for me against bullies. I thought about our parents who would be devastated. But then I remembered my ruined credit score, the $623,000 debt in my name, the violation of trust so profound I could barely comprehend it. "Yes," I said finally. "I need to protect myself. If she faces consequences for what she did, that's her responsibility, not mine." Detective Thompson nodded. "I understand this is difficult. We'll handle the investigation with discretion, but I can't promise confidentiality, especially if charges are filed. These cases become public record." "I understand." She pushed a form across the table. "This is the official identity theft report. Read it carefully before signing." As I signed the report, my real signature, not the forged one on the mortgage documents, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. The machinery of justice was now in motion, and I couldn't stop it even if I wanted to. Stephanie was waiting for me in the lobby. I'd asked her to come for moral support, knowing I'd need a friendly face after taking such a momentous step. "How did it go?" she asked, pulling me into a hug. "About as well as accusing your sister of felony fraud can go," I replied, attempting humor, but hearing the tremor in my voice. "You did the right thing, Heather. What she did was unforgivable." We went to a nearby coffee shop where Stephanie listened as I processed my swirling emotions. The detective said they'll begin investigating right away. They'll contact the bank subpoena records, maybe even interview Amanda. "How do you think she'll react?" I stared into my untouched latte. "She'll deny it at first. Amanda's always been good at lying when cornered. Then she'll try to justify it, somehow make it seem like she was doing me a favor or had every intention of paying everything back." "Do you think she did intend to pay it back?" "I mean, I considered this, maybe in some abstract way, but the practical reality, she and Brian were already missing payments. They never had a plan beyond using my identity to get what they wanted in the moment." 2 days later, Detective Thompson called with an update. "We've confirmed your suspicions, Miss Wilson. The mortgage application was submitted online using your personal information, but from an IP address traced to your sister's previous residence. We're also investigating her husband's potential involvement. Financial crimes like this are rarely committed by just one person in a household. Brian, I hadn't even considered his culpability until now, but of course he would have known. As a financial advisor, he might even have helped orchestrate the whole scheme." "There's more," Detective Thompson continued. "We've discovered evidence suggesting they were planning to declare bankruptcy in your name once the debts became unmanageable. There are searches from their home computer about bankruptcy laws and identity abandonment. The calculated nature of their betrayal stunned me. They hadn't just stolen my identity in a moment of desperation. They'd planned to utterly destroy my financial future while protecting their own. A week after filing the report, I received the official police documentation, a comprehensive dossier detailing the evidence against Amanda and Brian bank records, showing transfers from accounts in my name to their personal accounts, loan applications with forged signatures, credit card statements showing purchases at stores and restaurants I'd never visited in amounts I could never afford. Sitting at my kitchen table that evening, I read through each page, methodically highlighting the most damning sections. The police had done thorough work building an airtight case against my sister and brother-in-law. According to Detective Thompson, the district attorney was confident about pressing charges. Tomorrow was our bi-weekly family dinner. Amanda would be there, still believing her scheme was undiscovered. She didn't know that I'd received the foreclosure notice intended for homeowner Heather Wilson. She didn't know I'd spent weeks investigating her. She didn't know about the police report that now sat in a manila folder on my counter. As I prepared for bed, my phone chimed with a text from my mother. Looking forward to seeing my girls tomorrow. I'm making your favorite lasagna. Love you both. The casual normalcy of it broke something in me. I cried for the first time since this nightmare began, not just for myself, but for our parents, whose world was about to shatter. In the morning, I rehearsed what I would say, how I would remain calm and dignified. When I confronted Amanda, I wouldn't scream or name-call, though God knows she deserved it. I would simply present the evidence and let the truth speak for itself. As I was getting dressed for dinner, my phone rang. It was my mother. Honey, you're still coming tonight, right? Your father's already opened a bottle of wine. Yes, Mom. I'll be there at 6. Good. Amanda's bringing that chocolate mousse cake you love from Dahlia Bakery. Isn't that thoughtful? My sister, the identity thief, buying me cake with credit cards fraudulently opened in my name. The absurdity of it almost made me laugh. Very thoughtful, I managed. See you soon, Mom. I tucked the police report into my bag and headed out the door, steeling myself for the confrontation that would forever change our family. I spent nearly an hour deciding what to wear to the dinner, but somehow it felt important. I settled on a simple navy dress, professional and serious. Not my usual casual attire for family gatherings, but this was no ordinary dinner. I applied my makeup carefully, determined that Amanda would not see how much she had hurt me. I would not give her the satisfaction. As I drove to my parents' home in Bellevue, memories flooded back of happier family dinners. Mom's birthday last year, when Amanda and I had coordinated to surprise her with tickets to see Hamilton. Christmas 2 years ago, when Dad had gotten tipsy on eggnog and started singing carols in a sporadic voice until we were all crying with laughter. Countless Sunday dinners where we had shared stories, advice, and gentle teasing. Tonight would be the last of those dinners, at least in any form I recognize. After tonight, nothing would ever be the same. I parked a block away, needing a moment to compose myself before entering. As I walked toward the house, I spotted Amanda's white Range Rover in the driveway, the same Range Rover she had proudly shown off 3 months ago, claiming it was a reward she had given herself for closing a big property deal. Had that been a lie too? Was it purchased with fraudulent credit in my name? The familiar smell of my mother's lasagna greeted me as I approached the front door. For a second, I considered turning around, driving home, pretending I had fallen ill. I could confront Amanda privately, give her a chance to make things right without public humiliation. But then, I remembered the bankruptcy searches Detective Thompson had mentioned. Amanda and Brian had planned to leave me financially ruined while they walked away unscathed. They deserved no mercy. I rang the doorbell, feeling the weight of the police report in my bag like a brick. My mother opened the door, beaming. At 62, Carol Wilson remained vibrant and active, her gray hair cut in a stylish bob, her face lined but radiant. She pulled me into a hug. You look beautiful, but so serious. Everything okay at the hospital? Everything's fine, Mom, I lied, returning her hug, just tired from a long week. Inside, my father was in his usual spot, comfortable in his recliner with a glass of red wine. He stood to embrace me. There's my girl. Want some wine? It's that Oregon Pinot you like. Thanks, Dad. That would be nice. From the kitchen, I heard Amanda's laugh, bright and musical as always. She appeared in the doorway wearing an expensive-looking cream blouse and tailored pants, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her smile dazzling. Heather, finally. I was telling Mom about this incredible patient success story I heard from Dr. Garner at the club. You should talk to him about potential positions in his practice. The benefits are amazing. The audacity stunned me. Here she was, having stolen my identity, offering career advice as if she had my best interest at heart. I forced a smile. I'm happy where I am. Thanks. If she noticed my coolness, she did not show it. Brian's out back helping Dad with the grill. Mom insisted on both lasagna and steaks tonight. We're going to be eating leftovers for days. My sister-in-law Jessica arrived next with my brother Mark and their 2 children. Jessica immediately commented on Amanda's house, having visited recently for a play date with the kids. That sunroom is absolutely to die for, Amanda. The way the light comes in during the afternoon, perfect for plants. Heather, you should see it with all your green thumb knowledge. Your sister has turned it into this gorgeous reading nook. Amanda shot me a quick, almost imperceptible glance before jumping in. Oh, we're still working on it. The renovation is taking forever. Contractors. Am I right? I bit my tongue. That sunroom, like the rest of the house, had been purchased with my stolen identity. Dinner proceeded with excruciating normalcy. Dad carved the steaks while Mom served generous portions of lasagna. Wine flowed freely. Mark talked about his new project at the architectural firm. The kids chatted about school and soccer. Amanda expertly deflected any questions about their finances, or the house always steering the conversation to someone else's affairs. Heather, you're quiet tonight, my father observed as we neared the end of the main course. Rough week. I set down my fork carefully. You could say that. Anything you want to talk about? Mom asked, her forehead creasing with concern. Amanda jumped in before I could respond. Oh, leave her be, Mom. Not everyone needs to process everything out loud like me, she laughed, flipping her hair. Some people just need to mull things over privately. The irony was almost too much. Here was Amanda, who had committed crimes that would soon become very public record, advocating for my privacy. Actually, I said, meeting my sister's eyes directly, there is something I need to discuss with all of you. A flicker of unease crossed Amanda's face, quickly replaced by her usual confident smile. Sounds serious. Let's at least have dessert first. I brought that chocolate mousse cake from Dahlia that you love, Heather. That can wait, I said firmly. The table fell silent. Even the kids sensed the sudden tension, their playful banter ceasing. Mark, why don't you take the children into the living room? My mother suggested, her instincts for family drama finely tuned after decades of mediating between siblings. I think they've been promised some screen time. Once the children were settled with tablets in the other room, I reached into my bag and pulled out the manila folder. My heart pounded so loudly, I was certain everyone could hear it. Amanda's eyes fixed on the folder, her smile faltering slightly. What's that, honey? My father asked. I took a deep breath. The moment had arrived. There was no turning back. This, I said, placing my hand on the folder, is a police report. The silence around the table deepened. My mother's eyes widened. My father set down his wine glass carefully. Brian, who had been largely quiet throughout dinner, suddenly looked alert, his gaze darting between the folder and Amanda. A police report, my mother echoed. Heather? What happened? Are you all right? I'm not all right, Mom. I've been the victim of a crime. I looked directly at Amanda as I slid the folder across the table toward her. Identity theft and fraud, to be specific. Amanda did not touch the folder. Her face had gone very still, her usual animated expressions frozen. What are you talking about? She asked, her voice unnaturally high. Open it, I said quietly. Brian placed his hand on Amanda's arm. Maybe we should discuss this privately, Amanda. There's nothing to discuss, she responded quickly, still not touching the folder. Heather's obviously confused about something. My father, never one for tension or confrontation, tried to lighten the mood. Is this some kind of joke, girls? Because I'm not following? It's not a joke, Dad. I reached across the table and flipped open the folder myself, revealing the first page of the police report with its official letterhead and case number. 2 weeks ago, I received a call from Washington Mutual Bank about missed mortgage payments on a $623,000 loan I never took out for a house I've never owned at 4,872 Highland Drive. My mother gasped softly. But that's Amanda and Brian's address. I finished for her. The dream house they'd been showing off to everyone for months was purchased through a mortgage fraudulently obtained in my name, along with a home equity line of credit, 3 credit cards, and a personal loan, all maxed out, all in default. All eyes turned to Amanda, whose face had drained of color. For several seconds, no one spoke. Then Amanda laughed, a brittle, forced sound. This is ridiculous. There's obviously been some kind of mistake. A bank error. Or the police don't think so, I interrupted. Neither does the handwriting expert who confirmed the forged signatures. Neither does the Internet Protocol address evidence showing the mortgage application was submitted from your old condo. Brian abruptly stood up. We should go, Amanda. We don't have to listen to these accusations. My father found his voice deep and trembling with anger. Sit down, Brian. Both of you need to explain what the hell is going on. Amanda's demeanor suddenly shifted. The deer in headlights look vanished, replaced by cold calculation. Fine. You want an explanation? We hit a rough patch. Brian's firm collapsed when his partner embezzled funds. My commissions dried up during the market correction. We were about to lose everything we'd worked for. So you decided to steal my identity? I asked incredulously. To saddle me with over $800,000 in debt I knew nothing about. It was supposed to be temporary. Amanda's voice rose. Once the market recovered, once Brian's new clients came through, we were going to refinance everything properly. That's a lie, I said quietly. The police found your searches about declaring bankruptcy in my name. You were never going to make this right. You were planning to destroy my financial future to save yourselves. My mother began to cry softly. My father's face had turned an alarming shade of red. Amanda, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. Tell me this isn't true. Tell me you didn't do this to your sister. For a moment, Amanda seemed on the verge of another denial. Then her shoulders slumped. We were desperate. You don't understand what it's like having achieved a certain lifestyle, certain status, and then watching it all slip away. People were counting on us to be successful. Clients, friends, family, everyone. I was counting on you to be my sister, I said, my voice breaking. To love me, not betray me. Brian suddenly turned on Amanda. I told you this would blow up in our faces. I told you we should have found another way. There was no other way, Amanda shouted back. Your brilliant investment strategies lost us everything. What was I supposed to do? Not commit felony fraud using your sister's identity, Brian retorted. Do you have any idea what this means? We could go to prison, Amanda? My parents watched this exchange in stunned silence. Then my father stood up, his hands shaking. Get out, both of you. Get out of my house. Dad, please. Amanda began, her eyes filling with tears. Whether genuine or calculated, I couldn't tell anymore. You have to understand. I understand perfectly. He cut her off. You stole from your sister. You lied to all of us. You were willing to destroy Heather's life to maintain your facade. I don't even recognize you anymore. My mother, still crying, looked at Amanda with devastation. How could you do this after everything we taught you about honesty, about family? What happened to you, Amanda? Nothing happened to me, Mom, Amanda said, a hint of defiance returning. I just refused to fail. Unlike the rest of this family, I have ambition. I have standards. Do you think I wanted to end up like Heather, living in a tiny apartment with plants as my only companions? The casual cruelty of her words stunned me. Is that what you really think of my life? That it's some kind of failure because I don't have a mansion or a luxury car? You could have had more, Amanda said bitterly. You're smart enough, but you've always settled for less. Honestly, it's not like you were even using your good credit score for anything important. Brian grabbed her arm. Enough, Amanda. We're leaving now. He turned to me, his expression a mixture of anger and fear. This isn't over, Heather. You have no idea what you've done by filing that report. I know exactly what I've done, I replied steadily. I've protected myself from criminals. That's what you both are. Criminals. And now you'll face the consequences. As they gathered their things to leave, my mother called after Amanda. The police. Will they arrest you? Amanda paused at the door. For a moment, her mask slipped and I saw genuine fear in her eyes. I don't know, Mom. Probably. After they left, the three of us sat in stunned silence. My father poured himself another glass of wine, his hands still shaking. My mother wiped her tears with a napkin, looking suddenly older than her years. I should have seen it, she said finally. All those extravagant purchases, the house we knew they couldn't afford. I just thought they were being irresponsible with their money, not this. None of us saw it, I said, reaching for her hand. I never imagined Amanda capable of something like this. Not to a stranger, and certainly not to me. My father looked at the police report still open on the table. What happens now? The district attorney will decide whether to press charges. Given the evidence, Detective Thompson thinks it's almost certain. Amanda and Brian will be arrested probably within the week. And the debts my father asked ever the accountant. The mortgage, the credit cards, I'm working with the banks to clear my name. It's a long process, but the police report helps establish that I'm the victim, not a willing participant. My credit is still destroyed, at least for now. We sat together for hours that night, processing the shock, the betrayal, the uncertain future. My brother Mark returned from putting his children to bed and we explained everything. His initial disbelief gave way to rage on my behalf. I'll testify against her if needed, he said fiercely. What she did to you is unforgivable. As I drove home that night, I felt hollowed out, as if something essential had been scooped from my chest. I had done what was necessary to protect myself, but there was no satisfaction in it, only grief for the sister I thought I knew, and the family that would never be the same. The immediate aftermath of that fateful dinner felt like scenes from someone else's life, a television drama I was somehow starring in without having auditioned for the role. 3 days after the confrontation, Detective Thompson called to inform me that arrest warrants had been issued for both Amanda and Brian. They were taken into custody at their home, my home according to the fraudulent mortgage, and charged with multiple felonies. Identity theft, fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. Their arrests made the local news. Prominent Seattle realtor and financial advisor charged in identity theft scheme read the headline. The article mentioned that the victim was Amanda's sister, though thankfully withheld my name. Still, anyone who knew our family could easily figure it out. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from concerned friends, distant relatives, and even former classmates who had connected the dots. I turned it off, unable to face the well-meaning but intrusive questions. How are you holding up? Did you know what they were doing? Are they going to prison? My parents retreated into a shell of shock and humiliation. Dad stopped attending his weekly golf games, unable to face friends who had undoubtedly seen the news. Mom took a leave of absence from teaching, claiming health issues. Their social circle, built over decades in the same community, suddenly felt threatening rather than supportive. Everyone must be talking about us, Mom said during one of my visits to their home. She hadn't bothered to style her hair or apply makeup, unlike her usual put-together appearance, wondering where we went wrong with Amanda. You didn't go wrong, I assured her though. Part of me wondered the same thing. Had there been signs of Amanda's moral flexibility that we had all missed or excused over the years, small dishonesties that had escalated when the stakes got higher? Your father can barely sleep, she continued. He keeps saying he should have taught her better values, as if this is his fault somehow. The pressure from my family to drop the charges began subtly at first, then grew more insistent as the reality of Amanda's situation became clearer. She and Brian had been released on bail but were required to surrender their passports. Their assets were frozen, including the house which the bank was now moving to reclaim. She made a terrible mistake, my mother pleaded over the phone one evening. But she's still your sister. Still, our daughter. Couldn't you ask the district attorney to reduce the charges? Maybe some kind of probation instead of prison. Mom, she stole my identity. She planned to declare bankruptcy in my name. Do you understand what that would have done to me? I wouldn't have been able to rent an apartment, get a car loan, maybe even keep my job if it required a security clearance. She was willing to destroy my life. I know, honey. What she did was inexcusable, but she has 2 young children. Think about your niece and nephew growing up without their mother. That was the hardest part. Harper and Ethan, 5 and 7, innocent in all this. I adored those children, had babysat them countless times, brought them special treats from my travels. Now they might lose their parents to incarceration because of my police report. My resolve wavered. Maybe I could talk to the district attorney about a plea deal. Maybe there was a way for Amanda to make restitution without serving time. It was Stephanie who helped me regain my perspective during a much-needed night out at a bar far from my usual haunts. Listen to me, she said, setting down her vodka tonic firmly. Amanda chose to commit multiple felonies. Amanda chose to victimize her own sister. Amanda chose to put her children at risk by engaging in criminal behavior. None of that is on you. The consequences are hers to bear, not yours to ameliorate. Your parents are doing what parents do, trying to protect their child, but they're protecting the wrong child in this scenario. You're the victim here, Heather. Don't let them make you feel guilty for standing up for yourself. She was right, of course. And when I met with the district attorney the following week, I made it clear that I was not interested in dropping or reducing the charges. Miss Wilson, I want to commend your resolve, said Prosecutor Natalie Chen. Many identity theft cases involving family members never make it to court because victims withdraw under family pressure. But these crimes have real consequences and they merit real punishment. The legal proceedings moved forward with excruciating slowness. Preliminary hearings, motions filed by expensive defense attorneys, continuances, and delays. Through it all, I had to continue working, paying my bills, and attempting to repair my shattered credit. I'll never forget the day Amanda and Brian finally accepted a plea deal 9 months after my confrontation at the family dinner. I sat in the courtroom watching as my sister, thinner, now her designer clothes replaced by a modest navy suit, stood before the judge. Amanda Parker, you have pleaded guilty to 1 count of identity theft, 1 count of fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy, the judge stated. Before I pronounce sentence, do you wish to make a statement? Amanda turned slightly, her eyes finding mine in the gallery. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the sister I had grown up with. Vulnerable, human, flawed. I want to apologize to my sister, she said, her voice steady but subdued. What I did was unforgivable. I betrayed your trust in the worst possible way, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I was selfish and desperate and terrified of failure, but that's no excuse for hurting the person who has always supported me and believed in me. I'm so sorry, Heather. The judge sentenced Amanda to 18 months in federal prison, with Brian receiving 12 months. Both would serve 3 years of supervised release afterward and were ordered to pay full restitution, though how they would manage that without their careers remained unclear. As Amanda was led away, our eyes met one final time. There was so much unsaid between us, so much damage that might never be repaired. I didn't know if I could ever forgive her, but in that moment, I acknowledged the complexity of my feelings. The anger and betrayal intertwined with memories of shared childhood of love that had been real despite everything that came after. The weeks following the sentencing were a blur of practical matters. The bank foreclosed on the house, selling it at auction for less than the mortgage amount. I worked with credit agencies to remove the fraudulent accounts from my record, a frustratingly slow process that required countless phone calls, letters, and documentation. My relationship with my parents remained strained. They visited Amanda regularly in the minimum security facility where she was serving her time, but rarely mentioned these visits to me. We tried to maintain some semblance of family connection, but our conversations were superficial, carefully avoiding the elephant in the room. Thanksgiving came and went, the first one in my memory without a full family gathering. My parents invited me, but I declined spending the holiday with Stephanie's family instead. Christmas was equally fractured. I dropped gifts for my parents at their home but did not stay for dinner. The traditions that had anchored our family life for decades had been shattered along with our trust. The day the bank finally removed the fraudulent mortgage from my credit report felt like emerging from a long, dark tunnel. My credit score was slowly recovering, though financial experts warned it might take years to fully restore. I had moved to a new apartment, wanting a fresh start in a place untainted by memories of betrayal. As winter turned to spring, I received an unexpected letter, not from Amanda, who had written several times with apologies I was not ready to accept, but from my niece Harper. In wobbly handwriting on pink paper, she had written, "Dear Aunt Heather, I miss you a lot. Grandma says you're mad at mommy because she did something bad. I'm sometimes mad at mommy too, like when she wouldn't let me have 2 desserts. But I still love her. Do you still love her? Can you come see me and Ethan? We have a new apartment, but it's small and doesn't have a garden like the big house. Love, Harper. The innocence of a child who could not possibly understand the magnitude of what had happened brought tears to my eyes. Whatever my feelings toward Amanda Harper and Ethan were innocent casualties of their parents' crimes. They deserved an aunt who loved them, even if that love had to be carefully separated from the betrayal of their mother. I called my parents that evening and asked if I could visit the children. The relief in my mother's voice was palpable. They ask about you all the time, she said. We've been caring for them while Amanda and Brian are away. They would love to see you. That weekend visit with my niece and nephew became the first tentative step toward healing. Not forgiveness exactly, but a recognition that family bonds, even when severely damaged, do not simply disappear. They transform, requiring new boundaries, new expectations, new definitions of trust. The day Amanda's house was finally sold at foreclosure auction, I drove by one last time. Another family's moving truck was parked in the driveway, children running excitedly across the lawn that had briefly on paper been mine. I felt no attachment to the property that had caused so much pain, only a sense of closure as I drove away. Some betrayals change you forever. I would never again be the trusting, somewhat naive person I was before discovering my sister's fraud. But as I worked to rebuild my finances and reconfigure my family relationships, I began to recognize that surviving betrayal had revealed a strength I had not known I possessed. I had the courage to stand up for myself, to set boundaries, to demand respect, even from those I loved. 6 months after Amanda began serving her sentence, the foreclosure sign came down from in front of the Highland Drive house. Another family moved in, unaware of the drama that had unfolded within those walls. I drove past, occasionally feeling a strange mix of emotions. Not regret or envy, but something more complex. The house that had symbolized my sister's betrayal was now just a house again, inhabited by people who had no connection to our family's pain. 6 months after Amanda began her prison sentence, I was finally starting to see tangible improvements in my life. My credit score, while not fully recovered, had climbed back into the fair range. The fraudulent accounts had been removed from my record, though explanatory notes remained that would require clarification for years to come whenever I applied for credit. I had settled into my new apartment, smaller than my previous one, but in a building with better security, including a locked mailbox that only I could access. The paranoia lingered, a constant companion I was learning to manage rather than eliminate. My weekly therapy sessions with Dr. Elaine Winters had become a cornerstone of my recovery. Initially reluctant to share my story with yet another stranger, I had found unexpected relief in having a neutral space to process my complicated emotions without judgment. Family betrayal creates a unique kind of trauma, Dr. Winters had explained during one of our early sessions. The people we expect to protect us become the source of harm. It fundamentally challenges our ability to trust. Will I ever trust anyone again? I had asked, only half joking. You'll trust differently, she had replied. More carefully, more intentionally. That's not necessarily a bad thing. She was right. I had become more cautious about sharing personal information, more vigilant about reviewing financial statements, more selective about who I allowed into my inner circle. But I had not withdrawn from life entirely, which had been my fear in those dark early days. My relationship with my parents was slowly healing, though it would never return to what it had been. The strain of divided loyalties, their natural instinct to support Amanda despite her crimes, and my legitimate need for validation as the victim created an underlying tension that colored our interactions. But we were trying, all of us. Sunday dinners had resumed, though less frequently, and with a careful avoidance of certain topics. Your father and I visited Amanda yesterday, my mother mentioned during one such dinner, watching my face carefully for a reaction. How is she? I asked, surprised by my own genuine curiosity. Managing. Teaching an ESL class to other inmates. She asked about you. I nodded but offered no response. I still was not ready to visit Amanda, to face her across a prison table and hear more apologies that could not undo what she had done. Maybe someday, but not yet. My father, who had been mostly silent on the subject of Amanda for months, suddenly spoke up. She's different in there. Humbled, I think. I think she's finally understanding the magnitude of what she did to you. It was the first time he had so clearly acknowledged me as the victim, rather than focusing on Amanda's suffering. The validation, though long overdue, meant more than I could express. Thank you for saying that, Dad, I said quietly. The most unexpected support came from extended family who had seemed distant or judgmental in the immediate aftermath of the scandal. My cousin Rachel, whom I had never been particularly close to, reached out with a surprising revelation. I never told anyone in the family, she confided over coffee, but my college roommates stole my identity. Opened credit cards, ran up thousands in debt. I know something about what you've been through. What did you do? I asked. Pressed charges just like you. Lost friends who thought I was overreacting. Never regretted it for a minute. Finding this community of understanding other identity theft victims who truly comprehended the violation I had experienced became an important part of my healing. I joined an online support group and eventually began attending in-person meetings of a financial crime survivors network. There I met people from all walks of life whose stories echoed aspects of mine. The shock of discovery, the painstaking process of clearing their names, the broken relationships with those who could not understand why they would not just forgive and move on. In their company, I did not have to explain or justify my feelings. They already knew. Through this network, I connected with a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping identity theft victims navigate the complex process of recovery. After benefiting from their resources, I began volunteering using my own experience to guide others through the labyrinthine systems of credit bureaus, law enforcement, and financial institutions. "You have a gift for this," Margot, the organization's director, told me, after observing one of my counseling sessions with a newly identified victim. "You're compassionate without sugarcoating the reality of what they're facing." This work gave purpose to my pain, transforming a devastating personal experience into knowledge that could help others. I could not undo what Amanda had done, but I could use it to make someone else's journey a little less lonely, a little more navigable. Moving to my new apartment had been a practical necessity. The lease on my old place had ended, and I needed something I could afford on a budget strained by legal fees and credit counseling costs. But it became a symbolic fresh start as well. I filled it with plants as always, but also with new furniture that held no memories of my pre-betrayal life. I installed a small home office with a locking file cabinet for important documents, not because I expected another family member to steal my identity, but because the experience had taught me the value of prudent protection. When Amanda had been incarcerated for nearly a year, I received a letter that stood out from her previous attempts at communication. Unlike her earlier apologies, which had focused on her remorse and suffering, this one acknowledged the specific harms she had caused me. "I've been working with a therapist here," she wrote. "She's helping me understand that true accountability means recognizing not just that I did something wrong, but exactly how my actions hurt you. I stole more than your identity, Heather. I stole your sense of security, your trust in family, your belief in my love for you. I can't undo that harm, but I want you to know that I see it clearly now. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not even asking for a response. I just want you to know that I understand what I destroyed, and I will live with that knowledge for the rest of my life." I did not respond immediately, but I kept the letter, rereading it periodically as I processed my feelings. The acknowledgement of specific harms felt different from her earlier blanket apologies. More genuine, more complete, more aware. Around this time, I made a decision that surprised even me. Using some of the restitution money that had finally begun arriving from Amanda and Brian's seized assets, I put a deposit on a small house with a generous yard, perfect for an expanded garden. The irony was not lost on me. My sister's crime had ultimately led to me achieving the home ownership she had fraudulently claimed in my name. The day I signed the legitimate mortgage papers, a moment that should have been purely joyful, I experienced an unexpected wave of emotion. Sitting in the loan officer's office reviewing documents remarkably similar to those that had been forged in my name, I felt a strange closing of a circle. "Is everything all right, Miss Wilson?" the loan officer asked, noticing my hesitation. "Yes," I said, signing my actual name to a loan I had chosen for a house I could afford. "Everything is fine. Better than fine, actually." Taking ownership of my new home became a powerful act of reclamation. I painted the walls colors I loved, planted a vegetable garden in the backyard, and invited friends for a housewarming party. My first real celebration since before the identity theft discovery. Stephanie brought champagne and a doormat that read, "Not today, identity thieves." Dark humor that made me laugh despite myself. My parents came too, bringing a houseplant and awkward good wishes. They were trying in their way to support this new chapter while still maintaining their relationship with Amanda. "It's a lovely home, Heather," my mother said, hugging me tightly. "We're so proud of you." "For buying a house?" I asked. "For everything," my father clarified. "For how you've handled all of this with dignity and strength." It was not complete healing. That would take years more if it ever fully arrived. But it was acknowledgement, and that mattered. 2 weeks after my housewarming, I did something I had been considering for months. I drove to the Federal Correctional Institution where Amanda was serving her sentence and added my name to her visitors list. I was not ready to see her yet, but I wanted the option available when and if that day came. As I continue rebuilding my life, I have come to understand that healing is not a destination, but a process. Some days I feel strong and forward-looking. Others, the betrayal feels fresh and raw. I have learned to accept both realities as part of my journey. What happened between my sister and me is a story with no neat ending, no perfect resolution. Family bonds, once broken by betrayal, can never be completely restored to their original form. But they can transform into something new, something more honest perhaps, with clearly established boundaries and carefully rebuilt trust. I do not know if Amanda and I will ever reclaim anything resembling our former closeness. I do not know if I will ever fully trust her again. But I know that I have survived the worst betrayal I could imagine, and I have emerged stronger, wiser, and more self-reliant than before. If there is a lesson in all of this, it is that trust should be treated as the precious resource it is, given carefully, guarded appropriately, and withdrawn when necessary for self-protection. Love and trust are not the same thing, a distinction I never fully understood until now. I can love my sister while acknowledging that she violated my trust in ways that may never be fully repaired. This experience has taught me that family loyalty has limits and should have limits. That standing up for yourself even against those you love is not selfish but necessary. That forgiveness, if it comes, must follow accountability, not replace it. I am still writing my story, still finding my way forward. But I know this much. I refuse to be a victim in silence. I refuse to sacrifice my financial future to protect someone who had not protected me. I refuse to accept betrayal as the price of family peace. And in those refusals, I found my strength. What about you? Have you ever experienced betrayal from someone you trusted completely? How did you handle it? And what boundaries did you establish afterward? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this account has helped you feel less alone in your own experience of family betrayal, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to my channel for more real-life stories of resilience and recovery. Share with someone who might be struggling with similar issues. Sometimes knowing others have walked the same difficult path can make all the difference. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, protecting yourself is not selfish. It is necessary for survival and eventual healing.